The world moved forward, but it did not move on. The war had ended, yet its shadow lingered over every corner of the globe. Nations rebuilt, technologies flourished, ideologies hardened, and humanity, in its restless genius, began to shape a future born from both victory and vengeance. The mid-20th century became an era of paradox, progress and paranoia, innovation and insecurity. World War II had accelerated human advancement by decades, yet it had also unleashed forces that would test the very meaning of civilization. From the ashes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki came not only horror, but revelation that mankind now held the power to destroy itself. This realization changed everything. The atomic bomb. That single, blinding flash became the emblem of a new age. It was both weapon and warning, miracle and menace. The same knowledge that split the atom would power cities, cure disease, and reach for the stars, yet it would also haunt every heartbeat of the modern world. The balance of terror replaced the balance of power. The Cold War was not a war of battlefields, but of nerves, a chess game played on a global board, with annihilation as the stakes. In 1949, NATO was formed, a defensive alliance uniting the Western world under American leadership. Soon after, the Soviet Union established the Warsaw Pact, its own sphere of loyalty, enforced by ideology and fear. Europe, once the center of empire, became a continent divided by walls and wire. The Iron Curtain descended from the Baltic to the Adriatic, a scar across civilization. On one side, democracy and capitalism. On the other, communism and command. Both claimed to represent freedom. Both justified their dominance in the name of peace. But beneath the ideological struggle, the spirit of humanity continued its march. The 1950s and 1960s became decades of transformation, a race not only for power, but for meaning. In science, the world leapt forward with astonishing speed. The same engineers who had built rockets for the V-2 program under Hitler now designed spacecraft under the banners of the United States and the Soviet Union. Wernher von Braun's Saturn V rocket would one day carry mankind to the moon, a journey that began, paradoxically, with a weapon of war. In 1969, when Neil Armstrong's boot touched the lunar dust, humanity glimpsed both its boundless potential and the long, dark road that had brought it there. Yet even as man walked on another world, his own remained fraught with division. The ideological struggle of the Cold War manifested in distant lands, proxy wars that carried the embers of World War II into new generations. In Vietnam, Afghanistan, Angola, and Korea, nations bled for causes born of 1945. The weapons were new: helicopters, jets, napalm, but the cost was the same: lives, innocence, and disillusionment. Meanwhile, a quieter revolution unfolded, one born not of power, but of conscience. The lessons of the war inspired a global awakening. In 1945, the United Nations had been created to prevent another catastrophe. But in the decades that followed, its mission expanded: to feed the hungry, to protect the innocent, to speak for those without a voice. Its blue flag became a symbol of fragile hope amid chaos. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, drafted by Eleanor Roosevelt and others, became a moral compass for a wounded world. It was a statement born from the ashes of atrocity that all humans, regardless of race, religion, or nation, possessed inherent dignity. This ideal, fragile but profound, ignited movements that changed the course of history. The civil rights movement in America, the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, the feminist and decolonization waves across the globe all drew strength from the realization that freedom was not a gift from governments, but a birthright of humanity. It was as if the whole world, in the aftermath of war, had remembered what it meant to be alive. But peace had its own dangers. The prosperity of the post-war boom led to new forms of conflict, psychological, cultural, spiritual. In the West, consumerism rose from the factories that had once built tanks and bombers. Mass production gave birth to a new age of abundance: cars, televisions, suburbs, modern luxuries. Yet beneath it all, a quiet anxiety pulsed. Could humanity truly master the power it had unleashed? Could it learn to wield technology without losing its soul? By the late 20th century, the answers seemed uncertain. The Cold War reached its zenith. Nuclear arsenals expanded, spy satellites circled the planet, and entire generations grew up under the shadow of the mushroom cloud. Drills in classrooms, bunkers beneath cities, the haunting phrase, mutually assured destruction. All reminders that civilization now stood upon a razor's edge. And yet, somehow, peace held. Perhaps it was fear that preserved it. The knowledge that another war could mean the end of all things. But perhaps it was also wisdom, a hard-earned understanding that the cost of conflict had grown too great for even the most ambitious empire to bear. Then, in 1989, a miracle. The Berlin Wall fell. Concrete crumbled beneath the hands of a generation born long after the war that had divided their world. Families reunited, flags changed. The Soviet Union, exhausted and fractured, began to collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. And in 1991, the Cold War, that long, tense echo of World War II, finally ended. The world stood at the dawn of a new millennium, globalized, interconnected, and digital. The internet, satellite communication, and rapid innovation transformed human life faster than any empire or ideology ever had. But even in this brave new world, the legacy of the Second World War endured, not just in politics, but in memory. The Holocaust remained humanity's most solemn warning. Its survivors, their numbers fading, became living testaments to the necessity of remembrance. Museums, memorials, and archives rose around the world, ensuring that the cry of never again would not fade into silence. Yet the echoes of tyranny, nationalism, and prejudice continued to stir, proof that the lessons of the past must be learned again and again. World War II had changed everything, not only borders and governments, but consciousness itself. It had revealed the boundless potential of human ingenuity and the bottomless depths of its cruelty. It had proven that progress and peril are twins, that the light of civilization burns brightest only against the darkness that threatens it. And so, as the 21st century unfolds, the war remains our mirror. Its legacy lives in every peace treaty, every scientific discovery, every moral debate. When nations unite against injustice, when technology serves creation instead of destruction, when remembrance replaces denial, then the ghosts of the past rest a little easier. The story of World War II is not confined to the pages of history. It lives in us, in our institutions, our inventions, our fears, and our hopes. It is the foundation of the modern age, an age born of devastation, rebuilt by determination and sustained by the fragile, enduring belief that humanity can learn and rise in love again. And so, the world remembers. The soldier who fell, the mother who waited, the child who endured. The cities that burned, the faith that endured, the peace that was earned. From the dawn of mechanized war to the threshold of the digital age, one truth has never changed, that in the face of destruction, humanity's greatest strength is not its power, but its compassion. Because the war that changed humanity did not end in 1945, it continues in every act of remembrance, every stand against tyranny, every effort to build a world worthy of those who fell to make it free. And as long as the world remembers, the light of peace, however fragile, will never fade.